What's the scariest theory known to mankind? Story 1, Boltzmann brains. The theory says that it's more likely that your brain spontaneously popped into existence from a thermodynamic soup with your current memories than it is that you exist in the world as you perceive it. There are other laws of physics that govern our universe. Boltzmann brains sound fun and are a good theoretical thought experiment to test the limits of a theory. In this case, entropy in thermodynamics. But we can almost certainly assume it's not true. If you are interested in the topic, I suggest you read the Wikipedia article on it. Wikipedia is seriously underrated and is usually very good for everything that is not recent knowledge. You can never be certain of something like this, though. There are other similar thought experiments. For example, if a species is smart enough to simulate a universe, and in that universe, another species is smart enough to simulate a universe, you get a cascade of simulated universes with one original one. And you can almost certainly say we live in a simulated one, since they would vastly outnumber the real universe. Story 2, False Vacuum Decay. There can be a space of total nothing, emerging at the speed of light and turning all known kinds of matter to another state. Speed makes it undetectable. We can stop existing in any moment without a chance to realize, to detect the threat or to prevent it. Story 3, The Great Filter. The Great Filter is a proposed explanation for the Drake equation, which is an equation whose conclusion is that life, and intelligent life, in the universe should be much more widespread than it is. Thus, the reason we don't see a universe teeming with life is because life must be exceedingly rare. The Great Filter is a proposition as to why. The Great Filter theory is that one step in the evolution of life must be unlikely. We hope that this step is behind us. For example, it might be that the formation of single-celled organisms is extremely unlikely for some reason we don't quite understand yet, and almost all alien species fail at the single-celled stage. The more alarming idea is that the Great Filter is in the future. What if life is unlikely because all intelligent civilizations inevitably reach a point where they destroy themselves? If that's true, will we be able to recognize it, or will we go like lambs to the slaughter and destroy ourselves? Knowing humans, my bet is on the latter. Story 4. If there's another species out there in the galaxy capable of reaching us across the vast distances of just this one galaxy amongst countless, they're at a technology level that would make the disparity between 21st century Western nations and some tribal village in Afghanistan look so even, to be imperceptible on a graph to the human eye. They either ignore us because our little trip to Mars is cute but primitive, and our planet doesn't hold anything like the resources found in the stars, or they just neutron sweep us for a giggle, and you die instantly, along with the entire species, without ever knowing they were out there. Story 5. I'm a fan of death by quantum ground state. One of the quantum fields has a non-zero amount of energy at its lowest state. In theory, if it were to reach a value of zero, it would kind of undo physics by changing one of the fundamental constants. It would also drag the surrounding area into this new state. The chain reaction will move at the speed of light, so there is no way to know it's coming. If it can happen naturally, it likely already has happened somewhere and just hasn't reached us yet. Merry Christmas. Story 6. The idea that history literally and exactly repeats itself over and over again for eternity is pretty scary to me. It would mean our lives are preordained and we can't do anything to affect the course of the world. Also means we have to relive all of our bad times over and over again eternally. The good times too, of course, but maybe it's just me. I don't think that outweighs reliving all the bad times, and I've had a good life. Now imagine someone who lived their entire life in prison or whatever. Hell is a scary concept, of course, but that's an obvious one. There's nothing non-scary about the idea that some mystery entity might torture you with hot irons forever if they don't like you. Considering the sheer injustice of being born into a world where that's going to happen to you is just appalling. Story 7. Feynman's Paradox and Great Filter. The first says that aliens should exist and have a billion years head start. They would spread exponentially, and we would at least see traces of their massive energy consuming civilizations. But we don't. The Great Filter is one of the possible solutions. It proposes that there is a filter which is impossible to pass, which kills them off. The fact that we are still alive would mean that we haven't reached the filter yet. That filter could easily be climate change and the destruction we are bringing on the planet. We could be close to making ourselves extinct. Story 8. There is a reasonable conclusion for an intelligent species to arrive at that states that the possibility of encountering alien life is so potentially dangerous that the only reasonable decision to destroy any place intelligent life could exist. A near light speed object smaller than a phone booth would completely destroy a planet. The intelligent species then proceeds to launch these near light speed missiles at every planet in the habitable zone of any star in their galaxy. Those missiles proceed on course for tens of thousands of years, possibly outlasting the species that launched them, leading to an entirely sterile galaxy. There is no likely defense against this weapon. It only takes one determined species in a galaxy to do this, and it may have already started. Story 9. False vacuum decay. Basically, we assume our universe is a true vacuum existing in a stable state. If, however, it is a false vacuum, then at any point it could decay into a more stable state. The fallout from such a decay could range anywhere from changes to fundamental physical constants, which could lead to catastrophic results, to the complete destruction of all matter. The neat part is, if the universe is indeed a false vacuum, we have no way of knowing or predicting when this decay could happen and what the results would be. Any moment, and the whole thing could just pop out of existence. Or gravity could change and you could fly off the surface of the planet and slowly suffocate as the atmosphere dissipates, or the Earth's orbit could start drifting outward and we'd all slowly freeze and starve. Fun stuff. Story 10. The scariest hypothesis isn't necessarily the most catastrophic. It could be more mundane, yet still horrible. It's especially frightening if it's likely. Geologists have figured out one particular valley undergoes massive flooding about once every 150 years. The timing isn't exact. It may be off a few decades, but it happens. The whole valley basically turns into a temporary lake. This would be a local problem, except that the valley has some of the most fertile soil on Earth. It produces more than a third of a large country's vegetables. It wasn't an important region a couple centuries ago, but it is now. The next superflood there is going to cause rises in food prices so severe it'll make 2022 seem like a cakewalk by comparison. Certain types of food will practically vanish until that flood ends and the farms recover. That valley's production is so dominant that for a few crops, those shortages will be worldwide. Written records haven't been abundant in that region going back a long time. Only the most recent of the valley's superfloods still has eyewitness accounts. It happened in 1862. We're due for another. Story 11. I don't know if this is a widespread one, but this one is one that particularly freaks me out a bit. But basically, every action or decision you make, or others for that matter too, splits the universe into outcomes, one for each different decision you did or didn't make. It's particularly horrifying to me because it separates you from everyone. It doesn't literally, but how creepy is it to think that your consciousness would exist in one universe in one moment, and then a completely different universe in another? Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but it's super creepy to me. Story 12. One of the scariest theories known to mankind is the theory of existential risk, which posits that human civilization is vulnerable to various catastrophic events that could permanently destroy our species, or even the entire planet. These events could include global pandemics, nuclear war, asteroid impacts, and advanced artificial intelligence. The theory of existential risk highlights the fragility of human existence and the need for us to take urgent action to mitigate these threats and ensure the survival and flourishing of our species. Story 13. Not sure if it's the scariest known to mankind, but the whole concept of machines, robots, developing advanced intelligence and consciousness, which could potentially become evil, kind of freaks me out. Like, what if some evil robot comes to kill you in your sleep or something? Most humans are dumbasses, and you don't need to be too afraid of other people, but a robot will outsmart you. The really scary aspect is that they wouldn't be evil. They'd just be doing precisely what we told them. The problem is, with higher intelligence than our own, it's damn near impossible for us to realize the consequences of whatever instruction we give. The famous example is a machine that makes paper clips. Its goal is to make as many as it can. Seems harmless until it discovers it can hack into logistics and get resources diverted to it from everywhere to make the paper clips, or start turning everything it can find into paper clips. It doesn't have any concept of harm or enough. The only thing it knows is make more paper clips. Then it realizes it can work more efficiently by creating copies of itself. Now the universe is being flooded by these robots consuming everything, and if you try to stop it, it will fight you, because its goal is to make as many paper clips as possible, and it can't do that if it's stopped. Personally, though, I think the bigger threat isn't super intelligent AI doing what we literally asked for, instead of what we really wanted. It's AI just slightly smarter than us, doing exactly what people told it, which is to kill everyone who isn't them. Story 14. That all theories and hypothesis arguments are a predetermined collection of knowledge that others have agreed to be true. At one point, People on Earth agreed the Earth was flat and that ships could fall off the edge. Scholars and the highest of intellectual beings agreed upon one unequivocal fact: the Earth was flat. Of course, this has changed over time to now the Earth is round. It is a fact. Tomorrow we could find out that the Earth is shaped like a doggo. If the data and evidence says so, it'll be something agreed upon. The scariest theory hypothesis is that all we know and will know is only what we perceive. Truth of existence is a formulation of knowledge we comprehend, brought together by agreement of supposed truth. Story 15. The uncanny valley exists because there was a threat to us that looked almost like us. What was this threat? How was it a threat? Maybe Beowulf chronicled this as a reason. Imagine being alone, separated from your hunting party. You see someone up ahead. You call to them. As they stand, you see the body of Koros on the ground. Then the stranger stands, and you notice something wrong. The limbs aren't right. Too much hair on their arms. Wait, that's not a pelt they are wearing. They turn around, and their sacred gaze meets. You're the milky white of an injured eye, and another black as burnt wood. It crunches an eye between its teeth, and you see Kroos with empty eyelids. Story 16. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out I'm already dead. I think about this like this. If I were to die and find out I was able to do anything, like a Good Place style, this door will take you to any world you want. I would put myself into movie or book worlds, the real world, but I could do XYZ. I'd likely get bored of that after a while if the afterlife is permanent, and I'd start temporarily wiping my memory, whilst I experience the aforementioned alternate realities. And because it's absolutely something I do, I'm worried I've already done it and this is one of the worlds. Anyway, story 17. We are all living in a matrix. The perceptible world all around us is the matrix. We are bound to this world. We are completely enslaved to this world and our own senses. Breaking out from the sense of perceived apparent reality is akin to unplugging from the matrix. The matrix, or the world, is all around us. Our bodies are made from its material. Think about it. Your body is an amalgamation of earthly matter. You have forged your body from the food you have consumed. Not eating will lead to eventual death. Hence we are bound. Not breathing the air can cause instant death. This is bondage. We are limited by our own preferences, desires, and volition. We are trapped in a prison of our own creation, a prison for the mind by the mind. The ego entity seeks to protect itself by perpetuating self-delusion. Ignorance of our true nature is rampant, while knowledge is rare. We do not know our place in the universe, nor do we know the universe in its entirety. We hardly know 1% of the universe, yet we assume the nature of the remaining 99% of the universe, with the limited data we have gathered through our limited senses. The greatest joke is that we think we know it all. This is the ego saying it is in charge with a false sense of knowing. The intellect divides and seeks to know the nature of reality, all the while forgetting that splitting things up will result in limited and incomplete knowledge. Story 18. Dark Forest Theory. It basically runs counter to the Fermi paradox. It's the idea that whenever intelligent life finds another intelligent life, one kills the other as soon as it's spotted. In theory, it's done via a mass accelerator. It's actually pretty easy to make a planet extinct. You just have to slowly ramp up a big rock in their direction. You don't even need to get it to the speed of light, but you could get it close if you want to. Why would you do this to another world? So you get them before they can do it to you. Story 19. Proton decay. Effectively, if and once all the subatomic particles break down, there won't be enough energy to sustain increasing entropy and might end up ending everything forever, depending on future quantum fluctuations. In other words, the universe may not be cyclical at all, and the one we have right now might potentially be the only one which will ever exist. The Earth's eventual destruction by the sun is enough already to make one feel like life is meaningless. Proton decay and the heat death of the universe just brings it to a whole new level. Story 20. You're the only being that exists, and after dying, you will come to your original state, eternal painful loneliness that drives you into madness, floating alone in a dark emptiness of nothing but desperation. And in a try to escape from there, you will create another scenario again where you live in a society or surrounded by other living creatures, trying to feel company and love, but never feeling complete or satisfied. At times you will realize nothing is real, but you couldn't accept it or change it. At the end you will die again and see the truth, and you will start the show again and again and again for the rest of eternity. An endless cycle of lies, anguish, and sadness. I felt like that kind of often when I was a kid and a teen. Story 21. So this isn't scary at all, but it's a response to all of the talk about alien encounters or lack thereof. I'm certain people smarter than me have already sorted this out or at least named the theory, but here goes. Think about how much information we have been able to glean from distant objects without even approaching the objects. Now think about the level of remote exploration and discovery we're going to be capable of by the time we're able to physically travel from one solar system to another. Maybe the reason we haven't been contacted by aliens is because they don't have a reason to physically visit us. Maybe they understand that our crap would freak the hell out if they appeared, and there's no reason to, so they don't. Maybe we will reach the point where we can explore the universe in a virtual environment and only expand to other planets in this solar system. Because why risk trying to do something we can already do from home? There's a considerable amount of arrogance in the idea that we're worth visiting, destroying, or anything else. Story 22. I like the conspiracy-like theory that the Christian biblical flood was an actual event that almost wiped humanity out. It's very fascinating how the flood story, in one form or another, is part of a lot of legends and religious stories across the world, usually accompanied with stories of a snake falling from the sky and being given the means to build civilization. Nothing to do with God, though. Probably an asteroid that hit North America's ice sheet during the last ice age or something like that. There's a documentary on Netflix about it. The guy's a journalist outcast among actual archaeologists, so take it with a big grain of salt. But it's an interesting idea nonetheless, and scary to think about. Story 23. The Multiverse. Everyone travels through multiverses every day, through parallel realities. 99% of the time, nobody notices it. But 1% of the time, something happens that is so special and distinct, it may leave you baffled. Maybe an item of yours disappears into nothingness and suddenly reappears months later. Or a building you walk by every day suddenly just disappeared or never existed at all. It gets wilder with the quantum death theory. Anytime a person dies, that person wakes up in a different parallel universe where they are not dead. Say you are driving a car and you stop at a light. Left of you, you see a truck coming your way. You realize that you will not survive and close your eyes. When you open them, suddenly the truck is gone and you and your car are somewhere else, maybe somewhere earlier. Maybe you see the truck pass by in front of your car. Maybe not. But in that previous universe where you were before you died, it's a scary feeling to potentially know that while I am alive somewhere in some universe, my family is mourning for me because I am dead in that universe. Story 24. Small-scale conspiracy theory. Here, my wife and I are staying at a beach resort that provides complimentary boogie boards. The caveat is that you can only rent them when water conditions are clear, aka the red danger flags are not up. Both this year and last year, the flags were up the entire time during our stay, regardless of ocean conditions. What's interesting, though, is that there are no lifeguards, and the resort doesn't prevent people from going in the water. And plenty of people have boogie boards. Where did they get them? They had to buy them at the resort store. My wife is fully convinced that the red flags are a coordinated scheme to sell boogie boards to vacationers and then collect them for free when people have to fly home, haha. Story 25. The Lost Cosmonauts. It's not your typical tinfoil hat stuff. This theory has just enough intrigue and historical context to make you wonder, what if? The theory suggests that during the height of the space race, the Soviet Union may have sent cosmonauts into space before Yuri Gagarin, the officially recognized first human in space. But these missions supposedly ended in tragedy, with the cosmonauts either dying in space or upon re-entry, and the Soviet Union covered it up to avoid public embarrassment. Cold War secrecy. The space race was as much about propaganda as it was about scientific achievement. Both the USSR and the USA were playing high-stakes poker with space exploration. Secrecy and disinformation were part of the game. Missing cosmonauts? There are accounts, albeit unverified, of radio transmissions intercepted by amateur radio operators. These transmissions hinted at unsuccessful missions and even stranded cosmonauts, Soviet space triumphs, and tragedies. We know about the USSR's secretive nature and their tendency to only publicize successes. The catastrophic failure of the N-1 moon rocket was kept under wraps for years. Could the same have happened with early human space flights? But no concrete evidence. Here's the catch. There's no definitive proof. It's all based on hearsay, circumstantial evidence, and a few eerie recordings. The Soviet archives haven't coughed up any smoking guns yet. So, is it possible that there were lost cosmonauts, victims of the space race, who orbited the Earth in silence and despair? The plausibility lies in the context of the times. A high-pressure race to space, cloaked in secrecy and national pride. It's a theory that, while unconfirmed, isn't entirely outlandish given the era's nature. Story 26. Big Sock. When I was a kid, we had like 2 or 3 kinds of socks total: white calf, white crew, and black dress. The rich people also had Argyle, but no one else could afford them. Then, the secret conglomerates started going crazy. Gray, blue, funky prints. It initially started with those stupid rainbow toe socks and launched from there. And sock sales skyrocketed. Then came the really sneaky part. They convinced people that you don't have to match socks. And their sales really went up. What the hell, man? All we needed was like 4 or maybe 5 types max. Now these super rich jerks are flying helicopters and vacationing in Greece or wherever on that sweet, sweet sock money. Wake up, people. Story 27. When Michael J. Fox dies, he will be the final victim of serial killer Robert Pickton. Pickton was a pig farmer in Canada who fed his victims to his pigs to cover up his crimes. Here's the thing. There are some diseases, notably prion diseases, that are notoriously difficult to kill. A pig can eat someone with a prion disease, and that same pig can be butchered and processed and cooked, and the prions will survive. Once you eat the tainted meat, the death clock countdown starts. Prions will multiply in your system. There is no vaccine or cure or treatment. Parkinson's has many symptoms in common with a prion disease. It's a progressively degenerative neural disease. There's some genetic component, but some cases appear out of nowhere. Fox's breakout role was Leo and Me, a short-run Canadian TV show. This show is noteworthy because 4 other people on the set have developed Parkinson's, against all known odds. Leo and Me filmed just when Pickton's serial killing was getting started. It cannot be proven, but it is within the realm of possibility that Pickton's tainted pork ended up on the craft services table for Leo and Me and gave the people who ate the sausage rolls or ham and cheese sandwiches prion disease. Story 28. That the CIA was heavily involved in the spread and success of modern art as a means to easily create value and move money. Before we had to wait before some dead masters were rediscovered and their paintings became valuable. But with modern art, it was possible to manufacture success. They could use PR, grease a few critics, and all of a sudden, they created value. That was perfect to launder money or to avoid controls and checks. Story 29. Not even sure if there is a theory about this, but let me throw this one out. Deleting a Facebook, Instagram, Google, whatever account doesn't really delete anything, while your public or publicized information is no longer available to you or others. However, it is still available to Facebook and their partners. In other words, you still exist until a set date. After that, no new information is available to you. Old information can be used in whatever way desired. As we know, humans tend to follow patterns, so it would be relatively easy to target you via other methods. The same exists for Google. Just because they say they delete your information, it doesn't really mean that they do. You just can't find it. Story 30. The one where the NSA is branching out to social media, and Reddit in particular, in an attempt to preemptively identify individuals holding sensitive information on fringe topics and target them for re-education or straight-up removal from society before they put together enough of the puzzle pieces to form a significant portion of any of the broader narratives. Such agencies are in part tasked with obfuscating against wider scrutiny. It's theorized they initiate regular purges with seemingly innocuous thread titles like "What conspiracy theory is plausible enough to be true?" with the simple goal of tracking a subset of comments which would indicate a level of insight into secret documentation and black ops policy that crosses a certain agency thresholds, and going after these individuals too.